EWTN News Nightly on the border. We take a look at what it's like for those living yards away from Mexico. Behind the scenes tour with Border Patrol on land, on water, and in the air. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, the top cop, talks about his fight to end the DACA program. And the champion of immigrants, Sister Norma, who oversees a Catholic charity near the border. On a special edition of EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, June 5th, 2018. Good evening from Laredo, Texas, and thank you for joining us for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn reporting tonight on the U.S. Mexico border. We are here to see firsthand how federal agents in one part of Texas enforce immigration laws. A team of about 1,700 Custom and Border Patrol agents monitor by water, land, and air. There is no wall. There is no fence. In some locations, it's simply 35 yards of the Rio Grande River. We began on the water, where every day hundreds of Laredo Custom Border Patrol agents scan 171 miles of riverbanks. Agents say they catch about 100 a day. Paid guides swim with them, carrying 60 to 70 pounds of supplies or drugs on their backs. But some don't make it. We saw this dead body on the Mexico shore. If they make it across the Rio Grande, their first steps are here in Laredo. This way, they run quickly, shedding their clothes as they go, climbing up the hill where someone is meeting them. And at the top of the hill is a soccer field right here. That took me, what, a minute and a half? Okay. Agent Adela Vazapata has been on the hunt for 16 years.
They'll change into their dry clothes so they'll be able to continue on and blend in within the city, because literally here right now you have seconds to minutes to apprehend them.
What do you need here in order to stop this?
Well, we have our cameras. We have, like I said, like we just came off the boat. We have agents that are here that might be set up and you might not be able to see them. Try our best to be everywhere.
From the river to the road.
Kilo Charlie Kilo 3847.
Agents raid a stash house where smuggling groups take illegal aliens to wait for the next step on their journey. They arrest a handler and 5 illegal immigrants. As the sun went down, the night ended in a chase.
Just working that soccer field. Did that traffic go inland or back to the river?
The majority went into this rush area.
We got one.
This 27-year-old Honduran was caught. His guide escaped. Why do you go into the brush, run down the train tracks to catch these guys?
It's to secure America. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
This group only handles 15% of the Texas border. Last year, the Border Patrol here arrested just over 300,000 people, down from the year before. The Trump administration has been taking heat recently for reports that the administration is breaking up families at the border in order to lower the number of illegal alien crossings. President Trump blames Democrats. This morning he tweeted, "Separating families at the border is the fault of bad legislation passed by Democrats. Border security laws should be changed, but the Dems can't get their act together." Started the wall. White House correspondent Mark Irons just questioned a top administration official about President Trump's tweet and the future of undocumented immigrants living in the U.S.
Mark Short, the White House Director of Legislative Affairs, thanks for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
So this morning with the president's tweet, he seems to acknowledge that the reality is that families are being separated at the border. Is that the case?
In some cases, that is the case. I think, of course, we all want to be treating these families as humanely as possible. But one of the challenges is that the court rulings and the laws have created incentive for human traffickers to bring children along with parents in many cases, in some cases just adults and not really parents. And so what's forces an enormous burden on the border. And I think one of the things the administration is trying to do is to say, just because a person, an adult, their first action is to break the law, because they can always come to a port of entry, but their first action is to break the law, then we're going to separate them and prosecute them. And we're going to take care of the children humanely as anyone would. And I know there's a lot of attention about separating families. It's not a desire of anybody to separate the families, but that is a consequence of breaking the law when you come across the border illegally.
Is that a consequence, though, of the Department of Homeland Security's policy they enacted last month? The president's blaming Democrats, but isn't his administration?
Well, I think that there's a couple things at fault here. One is that the courts ruled several years back in the Flores case that any children will be allowed to stay in the country if they're coming in with an adult. I think it's well-intended, but it's also faulty in that it creates a perverse incentive for people to bring children along. It encourages human traffickers to find children to put with an adult to get across a border. So it's created an extra burden. I think the president says Democrats have had the control of Congress for many years. They had the presidency and they didn't fix this. And he's asked them to come along with him and to fix this law, and they've been obstructing and not willing to do it. So the president's frustration is that they've been unwilling to partner with us to actually find a humane solution to this legally.
But where is the president willing to compromise? This is a contentious issue, but he's going to have to work with the Democrats to get something passed.
I think that the president's shown enormous compromise. Look at where he started on the DACA position to say, in order to try to secure the border, I'm willing to give these children who came in with their parents legal status. And then he said, I'm willing to go to a broader definition of them, because Democrats said it's not just the 690,000 who've applied for permits, it's broader from those who've been in the shadows, unwilling to come out. And then the president went a step further and said, I'll even give them a pathway to citizenship if the Democrats will allow me to secure the border. Democrats have not been willing to allow any of that. Their position simply now is they're winning in the courts, and they don't want to solve this problem legislatively.
When the president says he's not willing to bring protections for Dreamers unless there's greater border security funding for that, isn't he, as some critics would say, using the Dreamers as political pawns if he's tying that to those proposals?
Again, let's keep in mind where we started was to say we want to take care of that DACA population. He expanded it to a much broader definition, and then he even offered a pathway to citizenship.
He is trying to be a Dreamer Act.
Why not a Clean Dreamer Act? Well, the question is, what does a Clean Dreamer Act look like? So far, what Congress has put forward does nothing to secure our border. And if you don't secure the border, all you're going to do is create additional incentives to continue to have these problems in years ahead.
Will the president have a bill on his desk this year that he can sign?
I think we fought hard to try to get a bill through the Senate. I think the challenge right now with the 50-49 margin in the Senate is you need to get 60 votes to move past the filibuster. Finding 60 votes on something that unites 60 senators on immigration policy is hard right now.
Mark Short, the White House Director of Legislative Affairs, thanks for taking the time.
Mark, thanks for having me.
Our thanks to Mark Short and White House correspondent Mark Irons. Congress faces a showdown in the House over immigration. Democrats and moderate Republicans are trying to force a vote to protect Dreamers, immigrants brought to the country illegally as children. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi spoke with a Catholic nun in the trenches. Jason has her story. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Sister Norma Pimentel is called the Mother Teresa of the border. She runs Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas. And that's literally right over the border from Mexico. Sister ministers to immigrants released from Border Patrol. She tells me they're fleeing violence.
We are able to then offer them an opportunity to restore their human dignity, you know. And so, but the conditions that families arrive are, very sad. They are hurting. They've been through so much in their journey, and they find themselves, in many cases, dirty and tired and scared. And so you see Jesus right there before us, you know, suffering, and this many moms and children, infants, that in their faces, when they are welcome, they begin to cry because it's for the first time in their journey they find someone and people that have embraced them and offered them care.
Your father was an immigrant from Mexico. He came here, he had the proper permission from authorities, and you said that he was coming to seek the American dream. And you've said that about the others that have come here, themselves may be coming here illegally. But at the same time, some people say, well, the American dream is one of laws and following the law of the land. So how do you rectify this issue?
The reason why they come is just like my dad. They came because they believe in family, they believe in protecting life, and they are here hoping that their children can grow up in a place that is safe and have an opportunity for that American dream.
I think you're going to be visiting with some lawmakers tomorrow. What's your advice to them? This is such a divisive issue across the country. What's your advice to lawmakers maybe to come to some common ground here?
Well, when we talk about dreamers, young kids who are here at no fault of their own, they have done great to get ahead, to go to school, to be somebody here in our country, to contribute to our country in a very positive way. And I believe that they must be given an opportunity to continue for that American dream, that they're not here other than to do something good. And so they should be allowed to stay. They need to be allowed to stay because it is the right thing to do, you know. And so I'm hoping that Congress and lawmakers can see that, and that we do need to find ways to create an immigration system that works for the good of this country. But the people that are here already must be able to be given the opportunity, especially if there's people who are here doing something good for our country, you know, and give that opportunity to follow through and stay and produce and do something good for the development of who we are as a country and in the world as well.
House Republicans have a self-imposed deadline of Thursday to resolve their immigration standoff. They plan a 2-hour private meeting to hash it out. Now, Democrats and moderate Republicans only need a few more signatures to force a House vote to protect dreamers. But Lauren, this is tricky. Remember, the Senate in February could not strike a deal.
Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. Thank you, Jason. In just a few minutes, I'll talk to the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. But first, here's Wyatt Goolsby in Washington with today's other top stories. Wyatt?
Thank you, Lauren. Here's what we're following back in the nation's capital. President Trump disinvites the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles from a White House ceremony. The president instead hosted a celebration of America. The Eagles event was canceled after less than half of the 53-man roster planned to attend. President Trump has hosted several championship teams while in office, including the Houston Astros, the New England Patriots, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The U.S. bishops are praising the Supreme Court ruling in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. The USCCB writes in part, true tolerance allows people with different viewpoints to be free to live out their beliefs, even if those beliefs are unpopular with the government. Yesterday, the justices ruled 7-2 in favor of a Christian baker in Colorado. Jack Phillips declined to make a cake for a same-sex ceremony. Appeals in similar cases are pending, including one at the High Court from a Christian florist who didn't want to provide flowers for a same-sex wedding. The UN calls on the Trump administration to end its policy of separating children from their parents after crossing the U.S. border with Mexico.
We do understand that some of the children who have been separated could be very young. We've heard of one case where the child was just 1 year old and was separated from their family.
The UN says detention is never in the best interests of the child and always constitutes a violation of a child's rights. Pope Francis is rejecting a proposal by the German bishops to allow non-Catholic spouses to receive Holy Communion. In a letter dated May 25th and addressed to Cardinal Reinhard Marx, Archbishop of Munich and president of the German bishops, the Vatican's top authority on doctrine says the proposal raises a series of problems. The letter was published on the blog of a veteran Vatican journalist, Sandro Magister. The Vatican has confirmed it. For more on the issue, we go to Vatican correspondent Juliet Lindley, who reports from Rome. Juliet, why does Luis Ladaria, the Vatican's doctrine chief, say the proposal is unacceptable?
Firstly, Wyatt, Cardinal-elect Ladaria says marriage between Catholics and Protestants is a topic affecting the universal church, and allowing non-Catholics to receive the Eucharist would also have an impact on relations with other churches. Finally, he says the question of communion is a matter of church law, and according to canon law, non-Catholics are not allowed to receive Holy Communion except, as we know, in very specific circumstances.
How have the German bishops responded?
Well, according to Cardinal Marx's spokesman, Marx is surprised because last month the Vatican asked the German bishops to find a solution amongst themselves. And this letter now says the proposal is problematic. And not all German bishops are in favor of this idea. And according to our colleagues at EWTN Germany, one very vocal opponent, the Archbishop of the city of Cologne, is said to be particularly pleased with this letter from the Vatican.
Okay, Juliet, so just to make sure I'm clear, so this is a definitive no from the Pope on this issue?
Wyatt, it's a no to this specific proposal, but Cardinal-elect Ladaria says the guidelines are not, quote, ready for publication, so that does appear to leave the door open. He also says different offices in the Vatican have been instructed to study the issue, and for his part, Cardinal Mark says he's going to continue this conversation with his fellow bishops, with the Vatican, and even with the Holy Father himself. Wyatt.
Okay, and we'll continue to report as those conversations continue. Juliet Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That does it for us in Washington. We'll return to Lauren Ashburn after the break with this.
Coming up, back on the border, my one-on-one conversation with the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, and his fight to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Welcome back to Laredo, Texas, where it is 107 degrees. Yesterday, I talked to a top Texas official who is a vocal advocate for tighter border controls. I asked him about the human cost of separating families who cross the border illegally. Thank you so much for joining us at the border. We appreciate it. Attorney General Ken Paxton.
Glad to be here. Glad you're here.
There's been a lot in the news recently about the Trump administration separating children from their parents, those children and parents who are coming over illegally. They're considering, the Department of Health and Human Services is considering using military bases to house some of these children. Are you aware of that at all?
So it's a federal, the federal government controls immigration and immigration law. My understanding is that law requires that they be separated because they can't detain children the same way they can adults. So if something needs to change there, that's obviously something Congress needs to address. The administration, their job is just to follow the law, just like it is for me.
But isn't there some human cost to this?
Sure, there's always a human cost. If you have policy that's not working, it affects not just illegal immigrants, it affects my state, it affects the nation. And so that's why we have elected representatives. Their job is to look at the human cost and figure out what's best for this nation.
So if someone crosses the border right here, it's a family, and the mother and father are taken one way and the child is taken the other because of current law, because of detention law. Do you think there should be another way? Should families be separated?
I think that's definitely something Congress should look at. Is that a policy that's working? I mean, it seems like not a good policy to separate families. I'm not sure why that got put into place in the first place. But yeah, there's a lot about immigration policy that I think needs to be looked at and understood to make sure that we're doing the things that affect us the way we want them to.
Just came out the increase in numbers of illegal immigrants coming across the border. Why is that happening?
So I think initially, the Trump administration came out. They were they made very strong statements. I think it created some anxiety about coming across. But the problem we have now is the resources haven't been applied by Congress. President Trump has been asking for them. He wants the wall. He wants more border agents. He wants more technology. Until we get that, we're going to continue to struggle with the illegal immigration problem that we have.
So basically what you're saying is the criminals have figured out that President Trump hasn't put up a wall right away and made draconian laws. Therefore, they're relaxing and coming in.
I think they realize that the resources have not been put behind this. Now, I think the administration is doing everything. They're begging Congress to put resources into this. I've heard them over and over talk about immigration. The Trump administration has focused on immigration and done more for immigration reform than any president that I've ever seen. So this type of effort needs to be followed up by Congress actually providing resources.
On DACA, tell me, this program that protects immigrants brought to the U.S., children brought to the U.S., no thought of knowing what was happening to them. Why are you leading the charge to send them back?
So fundamentally, this is about our Constitution and whether President Obama has the authority to just change law. If we allow a president to do that, whether we like the policy or not, once we start down that path and we move that job away from our elected representatives, we don't have the same country, we don't have the same constitution that our founders put together, which was all about separating power, separation of powers, so that one person couldn't decide for all of us what things were going to be in this country. That's why we elect people, and we need to make sure that that continues, because it's pretty important to, I think, most Americans.
Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for coming to the border.
Up next, Sunday Mass and how the Catholic Church is helping immigrants on the border. Finally tonight, the church here in Laredo is helping thousands of migrants who arrive in the U.S. every single day. Our team has seen their support firsthand. We take you to a vibrant Catholic community where leaders say their first duty is to save souls.
Bendito, bendito sea Dios.
Just a stone's throw from Mexico, the Cathedral of St. Augustine in Laredo, Texas, beckons the weary with hope of a better life.
It is the first structure that one sees when you leave Mexico and into the United States, and how wonderful that it is a holy structure. It is a structure that represents the presence of Christ.
James Tamayo is the first bishop to lead this diocese, created in 2000. It stretches 175 miles along the U.S. Mexico border and serves 222,000 Catholics. Masses are said in English and Spanish.
Por mi culpa, por mi culpa, por mi gran culpa.
Bishop Tamayo's mission is not to reconcile immigrants with the law. He says it's to help souls, like Nora and Valia Reyes. The twins crossed the border illegally with their parents and sister at age 8.
At the time, legally, it wasn't even like maybe a thought. It was just so like my family, it's in danger or could be in danger. It really did strengthen our faith. Like it really was tested for sure, but I do believe like the Lord does things for a purpose.
On a daily basis, Edith Cedillo addresses concerns of DACA recipients as they wait for Congress to act.
I think our main stories would be our DACA recipients, kind of in limbo, kind of didn't know whether to renew or not renew their work authorization cards or their deferred action, and now we get to renew it. Now they get to be a little bit at ease.
For now, while she helps migrants navigate the paperwork, Bishop Tamayo gives them peace of mind and spiritual support.
We bring the presence of Christ into our community. He is here through the ministries that the church provides that allows the dignity and the rights of each individual to be respected.
Cuerpo de Cristo,
We thank you for watching this special edition of EWTN News Nightly from the Texas-Mexico border. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter. Good night and God bless.